This is my 1995 Jeep Cherokee, and like a donut, it's got a hole or two in it. But sadly, unlike a donut, it's more like Swiss cheese, because it's full of holes. And I don't have the ability to solve the problem causing those holes, and that's it's 25 years old, and for 25 years, that front windshield has had the notorious Jeep Cherokee front windshield leak. For whatever reason, they used a terrible glue from the factory, and that allowed a lot of water and condensation to build up, pool under the windshield, between the cowl and the windshield, and it just rusted away in the last quarter century. I can't fix that at the moment because I need the Jeep to drive around. I don't have the ability to pull the windshield off without breaking it, and I don't have a good enough welder where we would fix that all up. But what I can do is fix the holes that it has created in the floorboard. So let's pull this thing out of the rain, into the garage, and start welding. We've got the Jeep inside, it's dried off, and it's time to start looking for those rust holes. Now, I recommend starting to look for those rust holes from the bottom of the vehicle. Scrape away, ding away, use a hammer, use a wire brush, whatever it takes. Because you're going to want to identify it from the inside. Because if you only have a couple of little spots on your passenger side floorboard, that's all you'll need to pull up the carpet. But if you have spots dotted all around, or any, hopefully not any big old patches, like I had a massive hole in my transmission tunnel, you're going to have to pull your center console, a couple of seats, all the seats possibly, and maybe even the whole front carpet out. And just FYI, the carpet is in two sections. Your rear trunk is its own piece of carpet, and the front section is its own piece of carpet. So you can pull one without having to pull the other. Just a heads up. And once you have identified the spot or spots, you're going to pull the carpet from that area. It's very simple to take seats, consoles, side panels out in Jeep Cherokees. There's plenty of videos on how to do it if you've never done it before, but it really is just intuition. There is a bunch of screws and a bunch of bolts. You can see pretty much all of them. Take them out. Easy peasy. Now once you have access to all the rust areas, you're going to start taking down that rust. Taking down that rust with everything from a hammer, banging away. It's kind of the most simple, barbaric way to do it, but it works sadly well if you have a cheese hole of a floorboard. And then you're going to take a grinder and a drill with a brush wheel, a wire wheel, and just start taking away the metal till it's nice and shiny. Get rid of anything that is pitted or loose, simple to bend, easy to bend, and cheese, cheddar hole. Cut that stuff out. We're going to use a big old patch of 16 gauge steel to cover it up and to sandwich that metal back together, hopefully stronger than it's probably been in years if it's that rusty. Now, when you've got this area de-rusted, and like I said, if you've got a bunch of cheddar holes and you've got the rust off of it, I recommend just cutting a big perimeter of that cheddar hole out. Be careful to avoid the frame. You do not want to cut anything out from the frame if you don't have to. That is a whole different level of intensity you don't want to be doing with a Chicago Electric 110 welder like I'm working with today. Now that we have that area sectioned out, we're going to use a piece of cardboard to create a template that we can transfer onto that 16 gauge steel. Now, on the 16 gauge steel, I recommend that with the Chicago Electric 110 welder to floorboard work, because I've done this a couple of times. Chicago Electric 110 works really well with 16 gauge steel. It's not too thick where it doesn't actually make the metal stick to one another, but it's not too thin that it just burns it away. It allows you to transfer that bead from the 16 gauge onto the floorboard, kind of swishing it back and forth without burning away too much of the floorboard, because the floorboard is so thin, especially if it's been pitted by the rust over the years, that it can be kind of a challenge to weld to. And once we have that template cut out, I recommend laying it down, making sure everything fits right, and do a star pattern of tacks. And then from above or below, beat the metal so they sandwich much tighter and closer to one another. That'll make your welding, especially if you're a novice welder with a kind of shite welding machine, makes it a lot easier. It makes your chances of success a lot higher. But before we can weld, we have to pull the battery off. Now some people say you don't have to do that. I like to just disconnect the positive just in case, so I don't blow my PCM up or my ECU or whatever. I'd rather not spend $200 to buy a new one of those. So I take it off. Some people say you don't have to. That's up to you. But if you don't and your car doesn't start, that's your problem. I don't have a video on how to fix that. And once we have that sandwiched metal a little bit closer to one another, just keep filling in that perimeter. I do recommend the star pattern to prevent blowing holes, putting too much heat into one area. So just do, you know, a 1/4 inch section of bead, transfer over, 1/4 inch section, 1/4 inch section. Just keep crossing over to opposite sections, allowing that area to cool down in between welding, and you'll eventually stitch all the beads together. Now, once you are pretty confident you have a solid round of beads, take whatever you were using to clean the metal before, the denatured alcohol, mineral spirits, whatever. Clean that down again, because this is a flux welder. It is very gross in the sense it puts a lot of splatter and a lot of grime down. Clean that off, check your areas. You'll probably have a couple areas you go, oh, I need to weld that a bit more. And do it again. Do that cycle a couple of times until you are satisfied. And I do recommend welding from below and above. And I recommend putting the replacement metal above the floorboard. That increases the likelihood, or decreases the likelihood, that in the future, if your welds don't hold up, if rust gets into them, whatever, putting it on top of the sandwich on the floorboard, all the years of you stepping and stomping there, it's going to decrease the chances of it just blowing out, detaching. Putting it on top, and that's why we also increase the perimeter of that board, so it's sitting on, not in the hole, but on top of the floorboard, really is going to strengthen it just by the nature of sitting on top of one another. And once we've got that last cycle where you clean it up and you go, it's good, it's time for some paint. Now, I really recommend using some high quality, anti-corrosion, anti-rust paint, both for any rust you may not have noticed, or small specks of oxidation. You know, you can cover that up and it's going to slow down or stop that rust in the future. But it also prevent future rust. Now, a brush or foam type of application is pretty easy for the interior. The exterior, especially the bottom, it's kind of hard to do. So I'm just going to hit it with a nicer anti-rust spray can, rattle can for the exterior. You know, it'll be fine. And once that paint dries, you're done. Project's over. And you can put all your carpet and whatnot back together, put your seats back in, whatever you had to take out to access that rust, put it back in. Feel good with yourself because you have welded an impressive feat. Now, this definitely was a video for low quality welding for novice people. I have a low quality welder that I'm pretty experienced with, but I am not experienced with high quality welding with high quality tools. That's not what this was for. So please, if you have any tips, tricks, thoughts on how you can improve ability with such welders, I am sure both myself and if anyone else watches this, would appreciate those being left down below. Like, subscribe, comment any of those suggestions you got. You can follow me on Instagram, SomeGuy's Insta page. I post a new video on YouTube, how-tos, adventures, all sorts of stuff, the first and third Monday of every month. And do remember to put the battery cable back on your Jeep so you can actually start it and pull it out of the garage, which is what I've got to do right now. So remember, if some guy can do it, finger guns.